everyone. My name is Lonnie. I am Lady Braven of the Pride, and I am passionate about inspiring, encouraging, and empowering people to be brave during this time of the Great Awakening of humanity. Our ascension into the higher vibrations and dimensions of reality. And I am so excited today to have another one of my brave authors from the third book, The Brave Ascending Human Consciousness, here with me today. His name is Gabryel Joseph, and he wrote chapter number 14. It's called Discovering Your Guidance. And I would love to introduce him just by reading out his bio in his chapter, just so you know who this fine gentleman is. Okay, here we go. Gabryel Joseph is a divine messenger, channel, composer, writer, and musician. A student of the Ascended Master teachings for over 2 decades, his guides revealed to him that his life path included being a divine messenger and channel. He works with the angels and masters of higher dimensions to bring forth healing energies and messages in spoken, written, and musical form to raise human consciousness. He lives on the west coast of British Columbia, Canada. Thank you, Gabryel, for being here and having this great conversation with me.
Well, Lonnie, thanks for having me for this video interview, and but thanks for letting me be part of the project. I think it's a wonderful thing what you're doing, so happy to be part of it.
Yeah, and I absolutely love your chapter and your contribution, and I think it's really, really important that we have this talk and we give people a little bit of inspiration and empower them with information on how to discover their guidance. So, okay, so this is The Brave Ascending Human Consciousness. I'm not going to read out too much of his chapter, but I want to give you a little bit of a taste of his content. And then we're going to talk about it a little bit, and then you should go out and get the book. So I'm just going to read out this portion here. The term awakening refers to when you start to notice that there is more to life than you were previously aware of. You may start to notice certain details or synchronicities in your life. You may question things that you once believed. You may contemplate ideas that you had never thought of before. Many of the things you now notice or question already existed. So why didn't you notice them before? The difference now is you. You have changed, you have grown. Your consciousness or your conscious perception has expanded to observe more of life. And just like you are discovering more of the world, there is also more of you to discover. I love that. You are uncovering that there is more to be aware of because you are experiencing a higher state of consciousness. Higher states of consciousness exist, and you are capable of communing with these higher levels. Otherwise, why would you be having this experience of increased awareness? I love the way you say that and explain that term of awakening. And this is what the whole entire book is about, right? Ascending human consciousness. So I love your perspective of the term awakening. And then what I wanted to ask you, just to get started here, is what do you consider to be the difference between, or is there a difference between being awake and being aware?
I was thinking about that this morning, and one of the things I said right off the bat in one of the first couple of paragraphs in my chapter was, don't get hung up on words. Whether it's, spirit, God, the universe, your higher self, your I am presence. I'm very much a linguophile. I love words. I love writing. But I also know that we can have very strong emotions around particular words, especially if you want to see an emotionally charged conversation, talk about God. And people have, whether it's old ideas or, things that they're healing about what that actually means. So I think within, whether it's awareness, whether it's awakening, it's all part of that process, because as we evolve, our consciousness is just opening more.
Okay.
And it all starts with you becoming aware or awake of certain things. So I really think it's the word doesn't matter so much as just knowing you're changing and you're evolving. Like it's interesting. My guides just flashed to me as you were reading that, this idea of a plant, that our very nature of who we are as humans is to evolve, to grow. And we're continually growing. And then at one point we really notice where our awareness begins, our awakening begins to shift. And that can be dramatic for some people. It can be an illness. It can be a passing of a loved one. Or for some people, it's very gradual over many years. So how that takes place is completely perfect for that individual, but everyone gets there as they're supposed to, because that's the point of life.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And then, having said that, would you say that for some people, there are many different levels of awakening, or that they can have more than one awakening in their lives?
I tend to think of it like one path, like it kind of you start here and you're going to there, um, and sometimes it's kind of funny. About a month ago, I was driving in the car, and my guys always give me messages at any point in life, and they gave me this beautiful analogy about how we think about how we'll go away from the light or go away from ourselves or our soul's calling, and then come back. And they were flashing me this idea that it's impossible to go away from your life path. You may go down a particular way that seems like a detour, but it's actually what you need to know to come back, because we're continually moving forward. We can try to stall. But the other, I love analogies. It's like if someone flicks a light on in the room, you can try to cover your eyes, and not look at the light, but the light's still shining. And so eventually, once the process begins, it started. And
Right.
whatever that looks like and whatever lessons you have along the way, it's all part of it.
Do you think that everybody goes through an awakening process?
No, that really depends on when they're ready. And the awakening process begins when the soul is ready.
Okay.
And when you have that guidance from your presence. Now, some of us signed up in this particular lifetime to wake up very early. Some chose to be a little bit later, but you can see the mass awakening that's taking place on the planet right now, which is being galvanized by the bit of the insanity we've seen in the last few years. But that's also part of it. And that sometimes that has to happen for the souls to realize, okay, it's my time to step up.
Right.
But sometimes, people, and there's been plenty of lifetimes where people maybe have done little bits of awakening, but that carries over into their next lifetime. Every lifetime is cumulative. And so you are all that you have been in your other lifetimes. So you're gaining that power. So it's not like someone just coming to this, this instant aha moment now. You've been doing that multiple lifetimes. That's why you're here now.
Right, right. And some of us, well, I personally feel like I had my true awakening in 2020 at the beginning of COVID, because I've been a spiritual person my entire life, and I've been developing my skills and my awareness and my clairsenses my entire life, but I didn't really awaken to the matrix, the 3D matrix of reality, until 2020, when I could see right through the veil of deception. And I knew that everything that we were witnessing happening on the planet was a lie. And that was when I feel like my awakening was. And maybe it wasn't just an awakening for all of the light workers and the star seeds in the world. It was an activation. And that's when I personally started stepping into my power, my path, and my purpose for being here. So my awakening and my activation kind of happened at the same time, but the awareness. Now, I've had an awareness of like this internal guidance and clairvoyance and clairsentience, claircognizance. I've had all of that since I was a teenager. Actually, I've been a very spiritual person and connected to entities and past loved ones on the other side. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The awakening is also, it is a process, but for some people it happens at a very specific time, and for some people it happens along the way, little bits and pieces. But I've always thought that the awakening is like when you snap out of this, like your slumber, that's the awakening. And the being aware is when you can start to connect all the dots using all of your senses, using your internal guidance. You can start to be aware of the reality that you have all around you. And you're also aware of your ability to manifest and co-create that. So you've stepped out of that victimhood and you're stepping into your power and your awareness of how powerful you are. It's like taking back your power. So I also wanted to know, okay, so you're talking about connecting to your guides while you're driving and they come in and they have these messages for you. When did that start happening for you?
It really consciously began just in the last year, about 13 months ago, where I obviously have friends who are, messengers, and at one point, the guides came through there to say, "Oh, by the way, you're also a messenger," um, which I wasn't really expecting, but it took me, didn't take long to integrate that. I said, okay, that makes sense, because having been a spiritual student for over 2 decades, I was used to at least, going in and meditating and feeling guidance in some way. This was just another level. And it's very important, I would say to anyone, it doesn't matter if someone is a messenger or a channel, whether they write or whatever they do. Anything that I do can be done by anybody on the planet. I'm not special. No one who channels is special. We are all have the same potential as human beings, because it's really just about opening your consciousness more, right? And so as you do that, then you learn to realize that, I guess it's kind of funny when I talk to friends and say, yes, I'm communing with beings in another dimension, but it doesn't feel weird, because it's just like talking to you here or talking with a friend,
Right.
just like they are, because it's only a loving message that comes in and you learn to commune with them. And then as you mentioned, some people begin to wake up quite early with whether it's clairvoyance or any of those sorts of things. Mine was claircognizance first, because I was on the spiritual path for years and wondering, well, why can't I see things when my friends are clairvoyant or whatever? And then when my guides did come to say, well, no, you were getting this first. And just in the last few months, every other light switch is being flicked on, because they wanted me to have that first, because now I can tap into that. But again, that's something everyone can learn through their own process of connecting.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, because that's what your whole chapter is about. I think that everybody should read this chapter about discovering your guidance. And without giving it all away, what are some tips that you can give people that are intuitively drawn towards developing their spiritual abilities and they want to start connecting with their own higher self? They don't really know how to do it. How do they begin to go down that journey of discovering their guidance?
I think the first thing is that people want to discover, and our most natural thing that we want as individuals is inner peace. Like and as you become more aware, and again, as you mentioned, as you go along this process, one of the first things that we seek is peace in our life. I mean, yes, we want joy and all of the other aspects, but peace is that baseline to work from. And to give you an image, it's like if you were to take a rock and drop it um, into the ocean when there's lots of waves crashing around, you wouldn't really notice it because of all the activities going on. But if you drop a rock in a very placid lake, there's ripples that go up from that, and you can see them for many minutes. We're very much the same way. The voice of our presence is always there from the time we're born. It's
Mhm.
just us learning to hear it.
Right.
But it's a quiet voice. It's a whisper. It's a voiceless voice. And when we're very frenetic, when we have this energy that's very chaotic, or we're feeling very upset emotionally, it's hard to hear that voice because of all of this noise that's going on. And that's really the power of meditation, or anything, of just learning to be quiet and calm emotionally. And by releasing all of the emotions that we have that don't serve us anymore, then we begin to hear that voice, because there's nothing competing with it.
Right.
Like our voice or our guidance, it will not yell over the top of the rest of the noise in the world. I love the saying that the voice of God is like a butterfly. You can chase it for hours and not catch it, but when you sit down quietly, it lands softly on your shoulder.
Oh, I love that too.
Yeah, that's really what it's like. So the first thing that I encourage everyone to do, and the challenge in writing my chapter, and I had to rewrite it several times, was that the topic of this chapter could be and has been multiple books. So even when I mentioned about releasing negative emotions, I mean, you can write an entire book on just forgiveness and letting things go. So, so within that process, everyone has to say, listen, do I want peace or something else? And Wayne Dyer had a great explanation for this. He used to have this little placard on his car when he was driving, and said, you can choose peace other than this. Whatever this is, do you want that or do you want peace? So learning to just have some quiet time. That's the thing, where regardless of what is going on in your day, and we all have 1,000 things that can come at us at once, but can you find a couple of minutes where it's just you? And regardless of what's going on in your life, you don't have to try to fix anything or anyone else right now. For this 3 minutes, 5 minutes, a half hour, whatever you can do, you just allow yourself to just be and breathe and allow yourself to have that plasticity, like where you become that placid lake. And then you learn to just ask that question. You just commune and you're just open and realizing that you're perfectly safe in that moment. Your presence will always have you safe. And any of the guides or masters or angels who come in, they're only loving. But where I said in the one chapter in the book, or the one paragraph, pardon me, you just ask that question. It's like, wow, I'd like guidance on this, or I would just like guidance. And you just sit quietly. And sometimes it comes right away. Sometimes it comes later on in the day. It might come 2 weeks later, because your presence and all of your guides are going to bring you a message, first of all, that's perfect for you, that you will understand, that no one else may not, but they may bring it in a certain time. So maybe they're going to wait for you to meet a colleague or a friend, and your friend is going to say something in just a particular way where something is going to click. And you're like, wait a minute. And all of a sudden, the wheels start turning, just like you mentioned. And that's where I was interested when you were talking about the idea of awakening. I think how I would describe that is maybe like a critical mass point. We all get to that point where we can no longer ignore the synchronicities around us. Like we grow up, and whether you're clairvoyant or clairaudient, or you sense certain things, or something's just not quite right. And then you just get to the point where, oh, this is starting to make sense and I can't ignore it anymore. And that's when typically the awakening is considered, because now you're really on that path of everything is very forefront in your consciousness.
Right.
But yeah, I think it all starts with, having peace, having that calm, and obviously you go into the forgiveness and letting go of things that don't serve you. But even being able to do that temporarily allows you to connect. And then it's like anything, you learn to do it a little bit, and then you learn to do it a lot.
Right. And like you, I also believe that I started off with claircognizance, which is a knowing, just a clear knowing, or a clear understanding. So you hear something and you just know if that's the truth or a lie, or it has a resonance. And like the truth has a resonance, right? When you hear the resonance, it either resonates with your soul and you get goosebumps, or it doesn't, and well, that doesn't resonate with me, that doesn't sound like the truth. So I had this knowing, and I also had a knowing and a belief that everything happens for a reason and everything is divine. And I had this understanding that everything was happening in alignment with the reality that I was creating for myself and what I was asking for. So when I start asking questions out into the universe, I was actually 10 years old when my mother passed away. And that's a lot for a 10-year-old to process. So I feel like my spiritual journey began when I was 10 years old. My mother had just passed away, and I started asking out into the space above my head, like this empty space. I started saying, where did she go? What happened? What happens when we die? Why did she leave? And I asked all of these questions to the empty space in front of me, or above me, or just there. And over a period of time, like you said, the answers started coming to me, but they don't necessarily all come through a voice in your head, or a knowing, or, a visualization. Sometimes they come in the form of a butterfly landing on your shoulder, or, a song that comes on the radio that reminds you of a moment or a memory. Sometimes they come in, the wind. You're standing on a beach and it's calm, and you ask a question and you get hit by a gust of wind, and you just have this experience and knowing that that was an answer of some sort. So the answers can come in all sorts of ways. And developing all of our clairsenses is what helps us recognize the answers when they present themselves. So I guess that brings me to my next question. And I know that you're not big on words, but I know also that a lot of people kind of get caught up in the difference between spirituality and religion. And I was brought up Catholic. I had my first communion, I was baptized, I used to go to church for all of the holidays and everything, not every Sunday, but my family was Catholic and I was baptized Catholic. But I mean, none of that really resonated with me in terms of the doctrine, in terms of the book. The concepts of Jesus and God and all of these things, yeah, okay, they made some sense to me, but the indoctrination of it I never really picked up on. So I feel like I was religious when I was a child because that was what I was born into, but I was spiritual right after my mom passed away, and my life has been extremely spiritual. And I think the difference, just personally, before I find out your answer, I think the difference is just like when you're religious, you're looking towards the church or the Bible for the answers. And when you're spiritual, you're looking within for all of the answers. And your higher self-guidance or the archangels or whatever higher dimensional beings that you go to for guidance. You're looking inside for those answers. So what do you think is the difference between spirituality and religion?
Well, first of all, I would echo exactly what you said, because I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, well, how would I define that difference? And I came into this idea that, yeah, it's definitely an external influence versus an internal focus of someone and all the religions of the world saying, well, this is what God is like, and this is the rules, and this is what you have to do if you want to go to heaven and not go to hell. It's like the old saying, religion is for people who don't want to go to hell, and spirituality is for people who've already been there. Um, just we have to have fun and laugh at it.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that I would also add to that, and this is one of the things that people don't realize as far as what religion has done over the last number of thousands of years, and really disservice about, because it's really about control, how they very systematically removed the divine feminine from world religions.
Right.
When you talk about God being male, well, the difference is all of us have a male and a female aspect. The male is the electrical energy, it's the mind. The female is the heart energy. Okay, it's the magnetic energy. And all of us have both of those. Doesn't matter whether you're born a man or woman. We both have male and female energies. It's the yin and the yang that is in all of us. So by taking the feminine out, they took out the heart. They took out the intuition. And you're seeing a prime example right now around the world when you can get people to be stuck in their mind, especially if they're in fear of going to hell, fear of catching a disease or whatever it is. You can control people very easily. You cannot control people who are based in the heart, who trust their own intuition, who know not only do you have intuition, it is the greatest source of truth that you have. And so whenever you get guidance from your presence, from other guides, whoever it is, it doesn't come to your mind first. It comes to the heart first and then goes up to the mind. Because our heart energy is where we receive that directly. There is a direct line. As you mentioned, when you're used to accessing guidance or anything from an intuitive standpoint, you just know instantly. Like there is no if, ands, or buts. You just know what is true for you in that moment. And you don't even have to explain that to people. Like it's just like concrete. It's so marble. It's so hard,
Right.
and immovable. And I think that's the difference too, as people get on the spiritual path. And this is why part of the reason why I get away from some of the words in the chapter, because I don't want anyone because I was brought up in a very religious family too. And I was very devout from a very young age, because that's the only expression I knew towards God. But I loved God from the day I was born practically. But realizing when we criticize or comment on religions, we're not commenting on the people. People are born into the expression they're born into. And all I would want people to know is, listen, I realize that this was your experience and we're all spiritual individuals, but realize there's also more you can access. There's more of you, there's more of the universe, and it's a beautiful universe to interact with.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. And I couldn't agree more. And, not only intuition comes from the heart, but I talk about this all the time. Courage comes from the heart. That's why courage, the word courage, literally means the heart in French, la cour. And yeah, so all compassion, courage, love, all of these things, they all come from the heart, as well as our intuition and that internal knowing. Yeah, I love that. And what I was wondering is, when you have this knowing and when you have this guidance and it just comes in for you, you said that it was started off mostly as claircognizance, but has it evolved to like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, all of the clair senses? And when the messages come through, are they clear for you, or do you have to kind of interpret and decipher and discern them for yourself? And also, one other question, all tied into one. Do you have a specific archangel or guide that you connect with, or a higher dimensional being? Is there a specific channel that you have, or is it just your higher self?
Okay, I'm trying to remember all the questions. So yes, mine started off as claircognizance and it has been growing. I'm being many lifetimes as a composer, a musician. I have the clairaudience as well. But I've noticed just in the last couple of months, actually, even this past week, I was sitting on the couch and all of a sudden I started to smell something that has no business being in my house at all. Nothing in my house smells like that. I was like, what the heck is that? And then all of a sudden, my guides came to me right away going, you're being activated again. This is part of what's being open. So my olfactory senses all of a sudden are being open.
Okay.
Yeah, so everything's going on at the same time. I've just been, like I said, I use the light switches because it seems what it's like every day. They're just kind of turning the dial a little bit more for me.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, now with your message about, or your question about the messages, in the beginning, when I was first opening my consciousness to the idea of bringing through messages, that was a little bit, there was a learning process like there is with anything. Now I'm at the point where I'm used to it. It's kind of like in the first couple of days you go to the gym, it's a little harder than when you're a year down the road. So now it's quite clear. And if I ever need clarity on anything, I can just ask, and then that clarity comes. And now the third question, oh, sorry, for particular message, no, I have a gatekeeper that most people who are messengers do, and all your gatekeeper is one of the masters who works up there to make sure who's coming in, and there's not three people trying to talk to me at once. But they told me right from the time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hold on a second there. Okay, yeah. So that's possible where you have like three entities or archangels and they're all vying for your attention. So you have a gatekeeper that like puts them in line, and like the bouncer at the door and makes them wait their turn.
Yeah, and I mean that sounds more rough than it is, because everyone up there is all love and they have total respect. I've had that where there's been multiple guides going to come through in one evening. In fact, I was there one night and I don't often get woken up at night, but this one particular night I was trying to go to sleep and I had all of this energy around me, and I thought, okay, this is pointless to be trying to sleep because everyone wants to talk. And at one point I kind of looked up and I could only see like a bit of a silhouette because my clairvoyance is still opening up. And there was about 5 or 7 of them standing there. I was like, who the heck are you guys? Anyway, and then they told me who they were. But of course they would only come through. And many times when a group comes, I've been in a room where I was doing a message for a friend, and I think 13 goddesses surrounded us as a message came through for her. But only one, or they will speak as a collective. They'll typically do that. Or they'll say, well, listen, we're the collective of the goddesses, and this is a message for you. Because they know, I mean, they're very respectful and very loving. So, and I had to kind of work that out when I first started, saying, okay, listen, if you're going to come, these are my rules on this. But they were completely fine with that. And so we've just had a beautiful communion. But one of the things they told,
okay. Yeah. And I know that you speak about this so casually, it's like everyday kind of content, but no, this is fascinating for me. And I'm sure a lot of people are also very interested. Now I have another question. So it could be other entities, it could be archangels. Do you have a lot of like extraterrestrials? Like, do you have Palladians or Andromedans or, goddesses? Like what, like who do you connect with the most?
Oh boy, probably the Ascended Masters.
Okay.
But also, I mean, my soul was created originally in the angelic realm, so I know I have a strong connection there.
Okay.
And I have a strong connection to the goddesses of Earth for reasons I won't get into. But just so there's, I have a strong connection with many of them based on past lives I've had in other places. I haven't had any of the races from some of the other planets like Pleiadians or Sirians come through yet, but I know that's coming because they're starting to change. I get what's called vibrational adjustments, where I know I'm being kind of tweaked and adjusted, and many people talk about this when you're bringing through light languages or other beings, where sometimes you just have to be a little bit aligned because we're still in these 3D bodies. Right. And I realize as I'm having this conversation, yes, this is an everyday occurrence for me, and I forget it's not for most people, and may sound really weird, but it's not. It's literally the same as me having a conversation with you. It's just like an old friend. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I find this absolutely fascinating. And that's why I think that many people are going to really enjoy this conversation. And as with many other channelers, um, I'm sure there's so much information coming through, especially since you've been doing this for a while. And I have I personally have been a journaler. I've been journaling my entire life, and I journal for a number of different reasons. Sometimes I'm journaling to help process the situation. Sometimes I journal because if I write it down, I take it out of my head and I can stop thinking about it. And if I put it down, and then sometimes I journal to visualize things that I would like to create in my future. And sometimes I journal just to as a record keeper of what just actually happened. And there's many different reasons that I journal, but I have experimented. Actually, I have a book called, maybe I lent it out. It's called The Artist's Way. And what they recommended is that you write 3 pages, morning pages every day, and that you gotten into the habit of automatic writing. And when you're automatic writing, you're just kind of letting anything come through and you're just putting it on the paper. You're not even really consciously thinking about it. And this is quite common with any artistic endeavor. If you just get into the zone and you just like allow yourself to be the channel for that inspiration. This is how a lot of people create artwork, and they create songs and music and works of art, and they do a lot of writing this way. So where I'm going with all of this is you've got so much information coming in, and you said that there might be a book coming out in the next little while. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
yeah, so that's been something that's coming to me for actually the last couple of years, even before my guides, made the big reveal last year. I was getting the promptings of, okay, this is part of your, I have a history in past lifetimes as a writer, and I'm a writer in this life. And they're saying, this is part of your path going forward. And that's why, everything happens for a reason. And
Right.
you and I were laughing earlier saying, me meeting you and how quickly, and again, I had the guidance to, to connect and all of a sudden to be part of this project. And thank you for that. And through that, my guides have said, okay, this is actually a key to you now. You're doing your own book or your own book series.
Right.
And the one thing that came to me that I was going to mention, that it's important for people to realize that when you're in that creative flow, whether it be music or whether writing or anything else, or even scientific discovery, it's being in that flow of consciousness. Most people either don't know or forget that Einstein did all of his theories after meditation. He used to meditate every day and write things down that came to him. That's all that is. Like the idea of other beings speaking to me or masters or speaking to you or you being in that conscious flow, that is the most natural state that we have. Every creative idea, every song that's ever been written, every art piece that's ever been produced comes from higher guidance, even if you don't realize it. The difference that when you learn to be quiet is you realize that that's what's happening. And then you come into a place of gratitude, and it's just this beautiful communion where you realize, wow, this can happen all the time. This is my natural state.
Right.
And from that comes such joy, because creativity is what brings us joy.
Absolutely. Oh my God, I love that. Yeah. And when I'm feeling low, like down and lower vibration, sometimes I'll pick up a new art project, even if it's a paint by numbers or something, or I'll pick up my guitar and I'll try and learn another song or something. And that always helps to being in the creative process always helps to elevate my frequency and my vibration and kind of pick me up out of a little hole if I'm in a bit of a slump.
I think
So
it's I was going to say something else I think that's important for people to know too, is that I was reminded, of course, like when I was first on the spiritual path, I was always seemed to be focusing on, in the early days, the things that I wasn't. Like I'd see people who are clairvoyant, who could sense energy, and it's like, well, why can't I do that? It's like, this desire to be more, but it's also important for people to realize just be who you are in this moment. Your soul will naturally expand, but focus on what you love. So if you're not a painter, you're not a writer, but you love nature, well, do that. Go towards the things that you love and watch what happens,
oh,
because more of that will flood in.
absolutely, I love that. And I think that is probably one of the most important steps of discovering your guidance is go towards, follow your joy, follow your bliss, follow what feels good, go in that direction, and you're going to find more of that, and you're going to find your guidance. All you have to do is start asking questions and then being open and available for the answers when they come through in whatever way they choose to come through. Yes.
And once you learn to hear them, you learn to hear them everywhere. And you realize that voice, that voiceless voice, or that subtle guidance that comes through the song or comes through what someone said or the book that you happen to pick up, that is going to happen all the time. And that vibration of joy and happiness and peace, that's all the same vibration. And that's how it feels. That's one of the reasons why I wrote in that chapter. It's like, how do you know what the heck is my thoughts versus my guidance? You'll know. It will be a feeling, but that comes in with the peace and being in the heart. And as you start to notice that, then you realize, oh, wow, I can access this all the time. They're constantly talking to me, or I'm constantly getting guidance. And then your life becomes easier as a result of it.
Oh my goodness, yes. Okay, yeah, okay. So every one of the stories in this book are somewhat of an activation. When you read the story and you learn about that person and their perspective and what they've gone through and how they've developed their own skill or their healing modality, it's an activation for you. So, and if you feel guided and called towards that, you're going to start looking into that healing modality or that perspective or that skill further. So it is an activation, as with every one of the stories in the first two books as well. Courage during COVID, this is meant to activate your heart chakra and call upon your courage to take courageous action in alignment with your values and your goals. Speaking Truth to Power, this book is all about activating your throat chakra and finding that voice, finding that expression, finding that way of standing up and speaking out and saying whatever it is that you believe and speaking out for your values and the things that you find important in life. Okay, so every one of these books is activating a different chakra. And that's what these stories really are. They're activations. So if you want to help, you want some help finding the courage to take action, to speak out, to awaken, to elevate your frequency, and to raise your vibration, then you're definitely going to want to get all three of these books. Just to let you know, there's a fourth book coming out this year. It's going to be called The Brave, Manifesting New Earth. And it's all about our powers of visualization, our connection to the divine, and our ability to co-create the lives that we want and the reality that we want in a higher dimension. And really, really powerful, because as we start moving away from all of this fear narrative of everything, all of the corruption that's being exposed in the world, we have to start focusing on the direction that we want to go. And that is what Manifesting New Earth is all about. So I'm really excited to get started on that fourth book that will be coming out this year as well. Okay, one last question for you, Gabryel. With all the messages coming through from your guides, is there an overall theme? Are they giving you some encouragement or empowerment about what's happening on the planet right now and something to focus on moving forward?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, I'd say the messages that come through are all, as varied as you can imagine for many different things, because sometimes they're coming in and just giving me guidance on my own life. I think one thing that came through, and this came through very early on last year, and this ties in with your fourth book as well, talking about where we're going. For people to realize that, we're all one big morphic field of energy, from us to the higher dimensions. So that's why, we affect each other and that sort of thing. So our consciousness has always been creating the world around us. It's not that we just want to create something. You're already creating it. You just have to choose what you want to create. And that's where power is so important in what we put out to the world. So one of the messages that came in very early was just as we're going through this awakening now, and for any of us who've already been in the awakening process, it's been kind of gradual. For some people, it's a little bit more dramatic. But you think about over the next couple of years, and you're seeing it now. People are waking up for the very first time. When you look at the number of insidious manipulations that have gone on throughout history, with our economics, with our politics, with our food, with our water, all of these sorts of things. People are going to wake up to a lot of things that they could become very angry about
Yeah.
as far as how much they've been deceived. Um, that could really happen. And one of the things they said, it's very important, and they talked about using some of the cosmic flames to help transmute this, but also working on forgiveness is going to be one of the most important things that we learn as a humanity going forward, because we cannot create this new crystal golden age from anger. Okay, you cannot create love out of fear and anger. That has to be transmuted, and we have to understand that people can be, maybe, and hopefully this doesn't come to pass, and it depends on our consciousness, how much we hold of that. Um, and that we have to move to a place of peace, and to be focused on, it's not just enough right now to say, well, I don't like this, or I can't stand that, or that's wrong. Those things may be incorrect and be out of alignment with ourselves. But what's very important is that we focus on, okay, oh, I don't agree with that, but this is where we're going to create. We're going to create the world of consciousness. We're healing and, building each other and building up systems that support people is going to be the new world. That's our focus. Because if you only focus on the negative, guess what you create?
Right.
And guess what you do to your immune system? Guess what you do to your inner peace? Right. You can't pour from an empty vessel. So we have to fill ourselves with the light and with the love, and say, okay, just because I'm in a loving state doesn't mean I'm going to agree with the manipulation, but I'm also not going to let it control me. I heard a great quote last week. It said, meditation is not about controlling your thoughts. It's not about letting your thoughts control you.
Right.
And it's the same thing with the world, that the world can be out there and can be dysfunctional. And that when you come to a place of more mastery of self, anyone can be angry or volatile in your face, and you say, okay, I'm going to see you for the light that you are. You're not going to come into my space and do this, but I'm still going to send you love. And that can be a challenge because people can trigger us, but that's where we're going.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a really powerful reminder for people, because what we focus on is what we attract into our lives, whether it be good or bad. And yeah, I think that's a really important message moving forward. And, I've always said that forgiveness is one of the most important and powerful tools that we can utilize to take back our own power. As soon as you forgive somebody and you disconnect from that cord of attachment that's been draining you of your energy with resentment or jealousy, anger, all of those things, you cut that cord. I usually call upon Archangel Michael to help me cut cords of connection. And once you cut those cords, then you're taking back your power and you're moving forward, and you're saying, I'm not saying that you didn't do anything wrong. I'm saying that I'm no longer making your decisions affect me, and I'm going to forgive and let go, and I'm going to move forward in the direction that I want to go. So that's one of the most powerful things that we can learn how to do. And it's really difficult, and it's part of our own individual spiritual journey and growth. It's part of our doing our shadow work. It's part of healing our childhood wounds. It's part of our own individual journey, is learning how to forgive and how to find compassion moving forward. Very important reminder. Thank you very much. Before I finish off, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience?
I don't think so. My joy just for everyone is that I love helping people to achieve peace and joy, and there's no greater act of service in the world, and I try to do that in individual interactions or to do something like this in a writing form. So my desire for everyone is that they can find that sense of peace and the joy and the incredible expansion of life that you can see if you take this journey. People think of the awakening or doing personal work as being this little journey. It's not. It is the biggest journey you will ever do in your life. It will challenge you in ways you have no idea, but it is the most rewarding thing you will ever do.
Okay, so I just posted today on my Facebook. I said nobody ever. I wish I didn't work so hard on my healing and personal growth. Said nobody ever. And just to finish off, I want to share one of the last sentences that you shared in your chapter, because I think it is really potent and powerful, and a good reminder of the power of discovering your guidance. And you said, May you delight in uncovering the gentle voice of your presence as you discover the true quiet within you. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching this video. Please like and share with a friend that needs a little bit of encouragement, and maybe they need to find their own and discover their own guidance. Somebody that needs a little bit of encouragement to be brave. So please share with your friends and subscribe to Lady Braven of the Pride, because we have courageous conversations almost every day. And as we all know, courage is contagious. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again.